Hey there, my name is Shirley, and I am a Chinese American living in Finland with my husband, who is Finnish, and our 2 kids. Our 3-year-old recently went in for her yearly checkup, and I thought that I would share with you what happens during a 3-year-old's appointment here in Finland. The child health clinic here in Finland is called Neuvola. I think I'm saying that right. These visits are free of charge and in a really relaxed setting, and it focuses both on the child's development as well as the well-being of the entire family. Now, luckily, I haven't really had much experience with the healthcare system here in Finland because I have, knock on wood, been relatively healthy. And so our visits with these child health clinics are pretty much what I have to reference in terms of healthcare here in Finland. As you may or may not know, Finland has an universal healthcare system here in place, so most visits are either free of charge or you pay very little out of pocket. They also have private clinics available if you wanted to pay out of pocket. So the appointment that we took our daughter to when she turned 3, this is part of the free healthcare system, and let's get into what we did during this appointment. So I don't have any footage to show you because, well, I just didn't feel like it was the appropriate time to be filming. The only clip I have is of the waiting room here, and we had a set appointment and we were seen right on time. I don't know about other health clinics here in Finland, but for this clinic in particular, we had to remove our outside shoes and leave them at the door. The nurse working there had her own indoor shoes or indoor slippers on, but we did not have any shoes on. Although my husband is Finnish, I do not speak a lot of Finnish. I can maybe start to understand a little bit right now, but I can definitely not converse in Finnish. So all of the appointments that we've been to recently with both our son and our daughter were conducted in English, and if the nurse couldn't think of a word, she would say it in Finnish and my husband would translate, but most of the time we were able to have a conversation fine just in English. When we went into our appointment, the appointment was with a registered nurse instead of a doctor. Only in special circumstances or situations would you be seeing a doctor or a pediatrician, and if something comes up during the appointment, the nurse can also refer you to the doctor, so you will make a separate appointment for that. So right when we walked in, we sat down and we started with the assessment of the child. So there were a series of tests that my daughter had to go through. These tests were developed so that the nurse can observe the child's development without being too hands-on or scary for the child. So one of the first things that she did was give my daughter a piece of paper with 3 shapes at the top. So it was like a circle, a square, and a triangle. And then she gave my daughter a pen, and then underneath the shapes, she asked her to copy the shapes. But just so you know, even though the appointment was spoken in English, she was conversing with my child in Finnish. This is not a tracing of the shapes, but they put the shapes on top, and then on the bottom is like a blank space. So the child would draw the shape depending on what shape it is on top. This was probably a test to see how her hand-eye development is coming along. And then at the end of that test, the nurse remarked that our child is right-handed. Something I never really paid attention to, but yes, she's right-handed. The nurse also took out a few stacking blocks and asked my daughter to stack it up into a tower. And then there was also one test where she gave my daughter a green pen, and then she gave my daughter simple commands. One of them being, can you place the pen underneath the chair? And then the other one, there was a couch further into the corner of the office, and she asked my daughter to take the pen and place it onto the chair further in the room. These appointments are very much play-based, and to assess my daughter's gross motor skills, the nurse also asked her to jump and then also stand on one leg, both the left and the right. And I think she also threw my daughter a stuffed animal to see whether or not she could catch it. Throughout the appointment, the nurse was also assessing how well my child speaks, whether they can form short sentences, follow basic 2-step commands such as the pen, placing the pen underneath the table, and I believe she also brought out a piece of paper with different colors and asked my daughter to name the colors. So after having done these simple tasks, we went on to the discussion section of the appointment. So this was really just for my husband and my daughter was kind of off to the side playing with toys. The nurse asked about our daily routines, what time we get up, what time we go to sleep habits for my daughter, whether or not she still naps. We talked about eating and nutrition, and she also asked whether or not we give her vitamin D, which is essential in Finland because people here don't get enough vitamin D through sunlight or food. So people here usually take vitamin D every single day. And that's something I didn't realize in the summer. You also had to do that as well, I guess, just to keep up the habit. And so yes, we definitely have to remember to give our kids vitamin D every day. And then we went on to discuss screen time and how much our kids are in front of the screens. And I think she also asked about potty training status too. And then the next part really surprised me a little bit when we went in for our son's checkup a couple years ago. So the nurse looked at me and my husband and she was like, so how are you guys? And I kind of just sat there looking at her like, whoa. In the US, I was really never asked that by the pediatrician. So I was kind of like, oh, I guess we're okay. We're doing good. So yeah, the nurse asked us how we were coping with our two kids at home, whether or not we had support, such as family or friends. And she also asked about our stress levels and just the overall family dynamics, which I thought was really interesting. And during the last section of the appointment, the nurse checked on our child's physical health and physical measurements, I guess, physical growth. So in our town, both of our kids got one of these little booklets or booklet covers. Oh, you also get a little sticker at the end of your visit. There's no like ball or other type of toys for your visit. You just get a sticker because, well, the appointments here are free. But yes, that's my daughter's sticker. When you open it, it kind of looks like this. She put this card in here, but we haven't been using it. I think this might be a card to remind you of the different appointment times. And I just noticed that this is sponsored by Semper, which is a company here in Finland. I don't really know what they do. These ones, or I'll show you this one because the other one's covered with the sticker, but these ones are sponsored by Valio, which is, I believe, a dairy company. They make juices and yogurts and stuff. So inside is this booklet. You have your child's information, and then they also have a section here where they fill out their measurements. I have it in English here because we moved to Finland when my daughter was 9 months old, so everything before that, I put it in here myself, and I converted everything from pounds to kilograms and inches to centimeters. They measure the usual three. They measure weight, height, as well as head circumference. During every visit, they kind of write little remarks in here. And I think I also saw a page where you can mark when their teeth start to cut through. We're not really using this either, but it's there if you want it. And then they also have a page about vaccinations and things like that. It's just nice to keep everything in one place and that you get all the information at the end of your appointment. While we were in the US, I had to ask them to print it out every time because they would just keep it in their system, and unless you ask for it, they don't really print it out for you or give it to you. There was also a really quick physical exam. The nurse checked our daughter's posture. She looked at her skin. She looked at her teeth. Dentist appointments are usually scheduled separately than this appointment that I'm talking about now. My husband took her to that this year, so I don't really know what they said. But they basically just check her teeth and then ask us whether or not we brush her teeth twice a day. And then we always walk out with these two things. We get a little sample of a tube of toothpaste here, and then also a sampling of Xylitol tablets. So this company is called Jenkki, which actually means Yankees, like New York Yankees, but they call Americans Yankees here. But these are Xylitol tablets. I won't open this one. We also have a small tub of it. So Xylitol is a naturally occurring sugar alcohol, and it looks and tastes almost exactly like table sugar. You've probably heard of this ingredient in chewing gum or even toothpaste and mints. I'll take one out from here to show you. Kids often will eat one of these, not often, probably always, will eat one of these tablets after every meal because regular use prevents the bacteria from sticking to your teeth. The bacteria in your mouth feeds on regular sugar, but they are not able to digest xylitol, which means that the xylitol actually starves them and it prevents the acid from attacking your teeth. Not only kids eat these, adults here in Finland very regularly also have some sort of xylitol after every meal. And fun fact, xylitol was actually first discovered in Turku, Finland, where we live. But going back to the health checkup, if your kid attends daycare, sometimes depending on which daycare they go to, they would also have a form ready. And it's just like a list of things that your kid currently does or does not do. There's like 3 columns for each subject. Let's say like eating with a spoon, for instance. It would be like, does it regularly, does it sometimes, and then never. So if the daycare provides that to the parents, the nurse will take a look at that form during this checkup as well. We used to have to fill it out with our old Päiväkoti or our old daycare, but now our new daycare doesn't really require it. So for her checkup this time, we didn't bring anything like that. The forms are also used to determine how well the child does in large group setting and with different adults around and things like that. Our daughter's vaccinations are up to date. So for her 3rd year checkup, she didn't need anything. But if she were to get a shot, this would happen in the same office, performed by the same nurse. Our daughter, who is now 3, when we first moved to Finland, she was 9 months old. And we had gone to her 1st year checkup, and the nurse asked us whether or not we have taken her to the dentist yet. And we said no, because she doesn't have that many teeth. But apparently here in Finland, you start taking your child to the child dentist very early. But back in the US, the pediatrician never really asked whether or not you go to the dentist. I feel like in the US, it's really dependent on the parent to determine when you would take your kid first to the dentist. Like I mentioned, this appointment was free of charge, but because the healthcare system is free, sometimes when you make an appointment, appointment, you have to do it weeks or even months ahead of time. Usually about a month before our daughter or our son's next birthday is when we will call to make the appointment. And we usually get it within, I don't know, like 4 to 6 weeks. Comparing everything we did in the appointment, I was really surprised at how many things they asked my daughter to do. Because when we were in the US, we went through 2 different pediatricians. The first one really didn't do much, and that's kind of why we switched to another one. She didn't really ask many questions, but instead she turned it on to us, say, do you guys have any questions? Of course, I will write down a few questions, but if you don't know something, you don't know it, right? So you don't know what to ask. But our second pediatrician was much more helpful. Usually in the US, when you take your kid to a checkup, you usually just do the measurements, like the weight, the height, the head circumference, and then shots, and then like you can talk about different things. But they definitely don't ask your child to draw shapes or stack blocks and things like that. But maybe in some pediatrician offices, I haven't experienced that myself. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comment section below, if this was helpful and if you would like to see more of it. Our son is about to turn 6 soon, and he will be going into his 6-year checkup. So if you're curious to see what they check every single year, I can maybe try to film a similar video as well. Thanks so much for staying to the end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Moi moi!